Hello, and welcome to Restoring Hope, the podcast of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. My name is Patrick Higgins. I'm the Executive Director of Communications for the congregation, and our guest today is Eileen Givens, who is the Director of Companions for Missionaries of the Precious Blood. Eileen, welcome, and thank you for being a guest.
Hi, Patrick, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've been wanting to talk to you for quite a while. So, Eileen, first of all, I'm going to ask you about, can you just kind of explain to me what your title is? What are companions and how do they fit into the congregation? What's the role they play?
Okay, my title as Director of Companions, I help coordinate different things throughout the United States. For right now, there are 25 companion groups, and a companion is a lay associate for the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. We are not ordained. We are just lay people who are interested in the blood of Christ and want to help support the Missionaries of the Precious Blood in getting the word out related to their charisms as far as reconciliation, healing, different things for the marginalized. So a lot of our people are in other ministries, but to be a companion doesn't mean that we have to actively do something. We gather, we pray, and then some groups, they do active things, social justice, all different things, feeding the homeless, going out and visiting those who are sick. But it's just part of the Precious Blood community and being, within that same, I don't know how you would say, just
With it's as I understand it, it's the promotion of that spirituality and that charism, and there is a common bond that forms among companions in that they are. And please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the companions are, as you said, the lay associates who help propagate the faith and propagate the tenets and beliefs of the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. Is that correct?
that is absolutely correct.
So, Eileen, how you obviously are a companion and have been a member of the congregation for quite some time. Can you take me through your journey of how you became a companion and what attracted you to the congregation?
Absolutely. We actually, when I moved here into Florida, I live in Florida, 37 years ago, we tried out different churches and we found St. Andrew Church in Orlando, which was run by the Missionaries of the Precious Blood at that time. So I had relationships as far as the different priests, and they were very charismatic, making sure they, were part of the congregation, not above. And so really enjoyed being here, and I'm still a parishioner at St. Andrew Parish. They had left our parish due to becoming smaller and not being able to run our church. So they had given it to the Diocese of Orlando. And then 2 years later, in 2011, I received a letter from another companion. I did not realize they had a companion group in Orlando at our church. I had not heard of companions. It was one of the best kept secrets. So I was invited to go to an informational meeting. I was very interested as far as what I had heard and the growth for myself. And so I did go through inquiry and formation, and I made my first covenant as a companion in 2013. So
So
I've
what does
been a
that what
companion.
does that I'm sorry to interrupt. What is the inquiry and formation period? What is that and how long does that last?
At that time, it lasted about 2 years, but we have changed it that now a person can go through it within a 1 year period. And the first 4 sessions, we normally meet monthly here in Orlando. So they would go through to see if they want to continue to actually do this, because for some people, it's not something that, they would want to do on a regular basis. But we meet once a month, and then we learn more. We follow St. Gaspar, who the Missionaries of the Precious Blood, their order had been started through that St. Gaspar and Blessed Merlini. So from there, we have a welcome rite if they want to continue into formation. So I did the welcome rite, and then there's another 9 meditations that we read through, and then we make a first covenant. And the covenant is between us and the precious blood missionaries, that just to say where our heart is and where we want to be in this ministry. So for me, I've been that companion since, with my first covenant since 2013. I had a full-time job as far as in insurance. I was an insurance supervisor, never even thought to be a director of companions because I didn't, we had a director and things were wonderful with her. And then in 2022, I had been notified that the director was moving into another position, a promotion within Precious Blood. And so was asked if I would think about applying along with other people. I didn't think I would be qualified for such. I, didn't have theology as far as my majors in any of my courses, but I kept throwing roadblocks. I had been in the Living School, which is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, by video Zoom, and then would have to go visit there. So I said, I couldn't do that. I still have a year of that, and so I wouldn't be able to. And they said, no, that's spiritual growth and direction, so that wouldn't be a problem. And then I said, well, I wouldn't move from Orlando, Florida. I've been here 37 years. At that time, it was 35. I said, I'm not planning to move. And COVID has taught people that we can live in different places and still perform our jobs. I travel a lot, which was not an issue since single here at my own home. And then the other thing, I had a pilgrimage planned for that January in 2023. And I said, I am going to the Holy Land, so I wouldn't be able to get vacation right away. And they said, again, that's spiritual growth and development. So consider, applying. So I discerned during my intensive with the Living School, and the more I discerned, the more I was very interested and excited, and said, is God leading me? Which it just became very, very profound to me that there was a new path for me in my life. So from there, we had the interviews and I was offered the position. Prior to speaking with our provincial director, I accepted the position without actually even knowing what my salary would be, because I knew God moved me here and it didn't matter. This is where I wanted to be. And since then, it has been blessing upon blessing. And so I'm grateful for this opportunity and to meet the people throughout the United States in the companion groups and helping to support each and every one of them.
Okay, well, that is great. So it sounds like you really do feel that you were called by God to be in this position.
I do.
Let me back up just a little. You'd mentioned that you went on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land in 2023, but we are recording this in July of 2025, and you just returned from a pilgrimage to Rome, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Tell me about that, because prior to coming on the air here, we talked a little bit about what it meant to you, but you got a special privilege at this pilgrimage. Can you kind of tell our listeners what happened?
I can. The reason I had gone on this pilgrimage was to learn more about St. Gaspar and where he walked and where the missionaries of the Precious Blood started their order, and to get to know more of that history. Within that, it happened to be July 1st is the Feast of the Most Precious Blood. So those that were there in Rome, and some worldwide, came to be at St. Peter's Basilica for a Mass being held at that for the missionaries of the Precious Blood. For myself, I had the honor, I had been asked to, I'm going to be emotional because it was such an honor and privilege. I had been asked to do the first reading of the Mass in English because they had done different languages for each reading. So I was able to be at the most holiest church of churches, St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, and did a reading for the missionaries of the Precious Blood. something that never in my life would I have expected to have happened.
Well, explain to me. Let's delve a little bit deeper on that. Explain to me why it was so emotional, why it's so special to you.
Because that church, St. Peter being the first pope and being there with Cardinal Tagle had done the Mass itself, and I was surrounded by, there had to be on each side at least 30 or more priests from the Missionaries of the Precious Blood. And my family had been there with me. There were 3 members of my family that were able to be there, and friends that were with me on the pilgrimage, to see my heart and to be able to do a reading and to proclaim, you know, things in scripture that Christ has brought to us and that I have followed in my faith my whole life. But never, I'm not a reader at my parish. I'm a Eucharistic minister, and reading is not what I normally would do. So it just, to be chosen to do that is an experience and a memory that I will never forget in my lifetime.
So what was that? So, and what was that like? I mean, it had to have been kind of awe-inspiring to be up there on the altar at St. Peter's Basilica doing a reading. Obviously, like you said, something you never thought that you would do.
Correct.
So, were you nervous? Were you excited? How did you
I
feel?
was beyond nervous. We did have a practice earlier that morning, an hour before, and I, had practiced the reading and wanted to make sure I wasn't going to stumble over the words. But yet, when we were escorted to the ambo, it was a long walk. It's a big basilica, so it was
It
a
is. It
long
is a huge
walk.
basilica. It is.
And then to get to the Embo, wait for the music to end, and then know it was my time to go up. I just had, was praying and just knowing that God was there with me. And I, just said, ask for the grace to be able to do what I felt God wanted me to do. So I was able to get up there. Halfway through, my legs began to shake and tremble. I was like, okay, am I going to make this? But I just, took a breath and continued, and then was able to come down. And when I actually came back to my seat, I just tears of joy that I was able to have that experience and just be a part of such a beautiful thing with the missionaries.
So explain to us what the pilgrimage was about and why you were there. This is a significant year for within the church and within the missionaries of the Precious Blood, correct?
Yes, this is the Jubilee of Hope for the Catholic Church and for the missionaries. So we had gone on this pilgrimage, and we went to many of the places in Rome, a lot of the different churches, but we also went to some little towns, Giano, Sonino, different places that where Gaspar lived, St. Gaspar lived when he was a boy, when he had gotten sick, and went into the church that his mother brought him in, and had given him to God with his illness and prayed over him. Just different things that I know were such a big part of having this order of the missionaries of the Precious Blood happen. And if they didn't happen, I wouldn't have had that at my church parish in Florida. We didn't have the missionaries in New Jersey. So I just feel this was a path God has led me through my whole life without even knowing. God has our plans before us, we're even thought of. So that's where I am.
So that's where you were. So obviously the whole pilgrimage seems to have affected you. It was. Can you tell us about? So you mentioned that it's hope. That is the theme of the Jubilee, which is also obviously the theme of our podcast. So, what gives you hope, and what gives you hope in terms of working with the companions on a day-to-day basis, or within your life? What does hope mean to you, and where do you see it?
Hope for me is just trying to see where me personally as an individual can make a difference in this world, but trying to do it alone is a very difficult thing. So being a part of a bigger thing, my parish, and then the missionaries of the precious blood and the companions, it just gets bigger and bigger. And the missionaries are worldwide, which just continues to grow for me. So that hope is spreading the word of the blood of Christ and the healing that that does, and to be able to go throughout the United States, visit those groups, help them. As this last 2 years that I've been working, I'm now in my third, I'm encouraged to help grow those companion groups, because a lot of them, Orlando itself, when I became a companion in 2013, that was the last time anybody was invited, until it's been now a year and a half ago, after I became director. I've been encouraging groups that they need to continue to invite, not just become comfortable. So we actually have, there are 7 companions that are inquirers right now that have gone through their welcome rite, and they will be making first covenant by our retreat in January. There's We just had a general assembly with the missionaries, and a lot of companions came. We had 5 new companions make their first covenant there. And so as I go throughout the United States, a lot of the groups, and that's where I have the hope, they're growing. It's like they've caught fire again. And as some of them have aged out, to where they can't come, they have perpetual covenants, but they're still praying for us. And we're now having more come into our companion groups. And to have that, it gives me hope for the missionaries also, for their vocations, and helping them to grow as companions and spreading the word.
So okay. So speaking of the companions, or even for yourself, do you have a story, or can you share a story of a companion whose life was profoundly transformed by hope, or had a particularly compelling story of hope?
Um,
And if
and
you
I'm going
don't,
to be
Eileen,
very
it's okay.
emotional. I
Okay.
will be very emotional, and it's my personal story. Through our parish, which at that time we had just had our precious blood leave in 2009, I went through an illness with my daughter. She had severe aplastic anemia, and she had gotten sick December 14th, ended up in the hospital for 7-month journey, but she was in the hospital for 6 months. I stayed there with her. Our parish and community of companion, especially the companions, just continually reached out, were there to help where they could. When you're in a crisis situation like that, you have no idea. I'm used to being that person that helps, going out and what do you need? Where can I do? As a single parent, I needed help. I needed my son to live somewhere. I needed, you know, fortunately, my work allowed me to work from the hospital. But companions, their compassion and their continual support, along with other members of our parish, unfortunately, and it actually is 16 years to the day today, my daughter passed away. And
I am
so,
sorry to hear that. I did not know that.
um, so
May I
that
ask, how old was your daughter?
she was 18. She was
Okay.
18. She was planning to go to college. She had a positive attitude through the entire journey. But even after the loss of Maggie, I had the hope because of those that came to me, the priests, the missionary priests that were no longer at my church, but still came to support me at different times. So I have hope and will continue to always have hope. And that is because knowing that there is healing and knowing that there is still joy in the sadness. So that I have. And I know there's a trillion other things that, hope within our parish, within the companion groups, throughout. So.
Well, Eileen, I'm sorry to hear that, but it is inspirational that you can still find hope, or that you still found hope in the midst of something that was truly transformative, I assume.
It was, absolutely. And it just made me, lean even harder on, our Lord, and just got even more involved in helping those that are going through different things and sufferings and what have you. So,
because I assume it would be very easy to become bitter or angry when something like that happens. But it sounds like, I assume that you experienced that, but it sounds like ultimately you found hope.
I did. And there was no bitterness in it, which is really odd. And I couldn't explain it except by the grace of God that He has allowed me to wake up each day and say, okay, it's a new day. There's something that I have planned for you. And as I look at my life and how it has now unfolded, I know God has a purpose for me, and I know there's continued hope where I can help others. So that's where I hope to be able to share, for people to continue to have hope.
And you do that. You do encourage that hope through your personal life, obviously, through your commitment to the blood of Christ, and through your job as director of companions. You are directing or recruiting people to become part of this spirituality and this charism that in itself offers much hope. Is that a good way to put it?
That is a very good way to put it. It truly is. And people look at me and they're like, as soon as you talk about your job, like you can just see the passion, and, you almost glow, because I do. My heart is completely in it, and I can't share the news enough and say, come be a companion. That when I said that it had been the best kept secret at our parish, that's what it's not any longer. People know who companions are. I spread that word, and I'm having groups put it in their bulletins, invite people, and because it shouldn't be a secret. We should be shouting it from the rooftops.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Eileen, what gives you the most hope about the future of the Companion initiative? Anything that you're hopeful about in terms of how the future of the Companions?
I'm hopeful that we will continue to grow, and as we do, that we continue to make that difference in helping the marginalized. I see within our parish, and I keep talking about our parish, but that's what I know the most. Within our parish, but other parishes that I've visited, we're helping with the homeless community, or those that have hunger, because it's getting more difficult in this world with people losing their jobs and different things that are happening. When we're, feeding meals to our homeless community, we serve them. We don't have them come up and do buffet. We serve them. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll sit and I'll be with them and just give them that hope and see where we can help and grow. And that's what other communities are doing within our different parishes in Liberty, Kansas, and within Ohio.
Well, that's quite a tribute. That's quite a testimony. I appreciate that. Eileen, if any of our listeners are interested in becoming companions of Missionaries of the Precious Blood, how can they do so?
They can reach out to me through my email address, which is companions.preciousblood@gmail.com, or they can call me by phone. I'm more than happy to speak with anyone. And my phone number is 407-782-0769. And if they get my voicemail, leave a message, because I will call you back.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Eileen, thank you so much for being our guest today. This has truly been I used the term before, but I use it again. It's been awe inspiring. It sounds like that you are really practicing what you preach, and that you are very excited about the spirituality and charism of missionaries of the precious blood. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Patrick, for taking the time. I appreciate you and everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate you too, Eileen. If anyone is interested, you can reach out to us. We are on the web at preciousbloodus.org, and you can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So thank you for tuning in. This has been a great episode with Eileen Givens, Director of Companions for Missionaries of the Precious Blood, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.